Beruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Kuf Nun Beis Amud Beis. 4 lines from the bottom. After Gemara previously discussed the goof of the neshama of the tzaddik after he passes away, the Gemara now returns to the neshama of the tzaddik. Says the Gemara, Omar le'ahu mino le'Rabbi Abo. A min asked Rabbi Abo the following question. Amrisu, you say, nishmosen shel tzaddikim, genuzois tachas kisei hakavod. The neshamas of tzaddikim are placed underneath the kisei hakavod. If that's so, he asks, Uba Dahamya Hechi Aski Lishmuel Benegida. The Uba Tamya refers to the necromancers, the Baal Oiv, who used to use the bones to then communicate with the dead. There, the Navi says over there in Shmuel Aleph that Shaul HaMelech wanted to determine what would be the fate in going to then battle with the Plishtim. He asked HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not respond. In his desperate state, which was really incorrect to do, he went to the Baal Oiv and he wanted then to ask the matter before Shmuel HaNavi and get Shmuel's response. So he's asking over here, how did he communicate this question to Shmuel HaNavi? Hare, the neshama of the tzaddik, and Shmuel HaNavi was certainly a tzaddik, is ganuz mitachas kisei hakavod. Omar lei hasam b'toich shnei masar chodesh hava. That incident took place within the first 12 months of Shmuel's petira. The Tanya, it says, Kol yud beis chodesh gufoy kayom v'nishmasa oila v'yaredes. The first 12 months, the goof is intact, and the neshama goes up and goes down as well. But la'achar yud beis chodesh, haguf batil, v'nishmasa oila v'shuv eina yaredes. After 12 months, the goof is batil, and the neshama remains above and does not come down against its will. When the top of Kuf Nun Gimel at Aleph, Omar Rav Yehuda Bered Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas Mishmei Derav, regards to Hesped, he says the following: Mehespedo shel Adam nikar im ben ha'olam habohu im lav. Through a person's eulogy, we can determine that the one who is eulogizing, whether he's a ben olam haba, he has a connection, a strong intrinsic kesher with olam haba. Not that just he's somebody who is zoichet olam haba, but he's a ben olam haba. Just like a ben who's intrinsically connected to his father, so too a ben olam haba has an intrinsic connection to olam haba. How do we determine that? Through his hesped. We can see if the people that is assembled at the hesped is stirred, and their hearts get them to cry because of the hesped for the one who is deceased. Ask the Gemara, is that so? That's the way we can determine if a person is indeed somebody who is a ben olam haba through the hesped. V'ha'omar le'Rav Shmuel bar Shilas, achim behespeda dahason ka'imno. Rav beseeched Rav Shmuel bar Shilas to give a stirring hesped when he passes away. So that he said, because I'm going to be present listening to the hesped. Now, why does this tzaddik, Rav, who's a Gavur Rabbah, have to then beseech Rav Shmuel bar Shilas? If indeed that the people who are assembled at the hesped will then cry, because after all, that's a siman that the one who was nifter is a ben olam haba. We know that Rav is a ben olam haba. Why does he ask Rav Shmuel bar Shilas to then be maspid him with a stirring type of hesped? Gemara says, Lo kasha, ha demechamu leva achim, ha demechamu leva loy achim. Either way, a person has to give a stirring hesped. But whether the people will actually cry over the deceased or not, that will determine whether he was a ben olam haba or not. Omar le Abai le Rabbe. Abai says to Rabbe, who was the Rav of Pumbedisa, was the Rosh Yeshiva, and the people in the locale of Pumbedisa, the Hamon Am that lived there, they despised Rabbe, because Rabbe, who was the Rav, gave them teichacha because they were deceitful people. So Abai turns to Rabbe and he says to him, Kigon mar desanu le kulu b'bitidisoi man achim aspeda. because the people of Pumbedisa hate you, who's going to deliver a stirring hesped? In other words, because he was so great and he gave toichacha to these people, even though it's a result of that toichacha he was disliked. So who can then measure your greatness and give a proper hesped? Omarle Rabba said in his humility, Mistaya'at v'Rabba bar Rav Chanan. It would be enough, it would be sufficient if you and Rabba bar Chanan were biti maspid me. Boy mine Rabbi Elazar Rav. Along these lines, the Gemara asks, Ezu ben ha'olam haba. Who is considered to be a ben olam haba? Omar le, he responded with a pasuk. V'oiznecha tishmano dova me'acharecha leimor. And your ears shall hear something behind you saying, Zeh haderech lechu boy. This is the way that you shall go in it. Ki taminu v'chisasmilu. Whether you turn right or to turn left. In other words, his response was, who is a ben olam haba? If people then look at this person who was deceased and say, this person, the way he went in his path of life, you shall also go in that path. That's going to be an indication that he's a ben olam haba. Rabbi Chanina Omar Kol Shedas Rabbi Seinu, the Girsa should be Rabbi Sov Noiche Heimenu. Another indication whether he's a ben olam haba, says Rabbi Chanina, is because if his Rabbi Sov, his Rabbanim, they are happy with him. In other words, they, based on what they saw and heard, they objectively know what is indeed correct, and therefore, without any worries of trying to then find Hanifa or anything else, they would know what is the truth about this person. If they're satisfied with this person and his behavior, it's a true indication that he's a ben olam haba. Says the Gemara, bringing the pasuk that we actually brought from Koheles before. There the pasuk says that each person goes to his beis olamoi, his eternal existence. V'savavu b'shuk hasoifdim. The pasuk ends and says, and those eulogizers will then go around in the streets. Says the Gemara, B'nei Galila Amre, they used to say in Galil, Asay, do, meaning do the right deeds, because Devarim lifnei mitoscha, because then the eulogizers will then say nice, positive things before your mita. B'nei Yehuda Amre, Asay, they would say, do righteous acts, because Dvarim la'achar mitoscha, because then the eulogizers will say positive things behind your mita. V'lo pligi, it's not an argument whether it's behind the mita or in front of the mita, because marki asrei. Some eulogize in one place in front of the mita, while the other place they used to eulogize the person from behind the mita. Tanan Hasam, it says in the Mishnah there in Avos, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Shuv Yom Echod Lifnei Mitoscha. Return one day before your death. Shalu Talmidim as Rabbi Eliezer, the Talmidim asked him, Rabbi, V'chi Adam Yodeh Eze Yom Yamus, does a person know which day he will die? That indeed he'll be able to do tshuva the day before he dies? Omar Lahen, his response is Talmidim is a Kol Shekain. Yoshuv Hayoim Shema Yamus L'machar. That's exactly right. He doesn't know when he will die, and therefore he should certainly do tshuva today, because maybe he will die tomorrow. V'nimtze kol yoma b'tshuva, whereby he'll always be in a state of tshuva, in purity. V'ashloima oma b'chachmosoi, the Gemara says, Shlomo HaMelech also said this, B'kol eis yu begadecha levonim, all of the time your clothes shall be white, an indication of purity. V'shemen al roshcha al yechsar, and the oil upon your head shall not be lacking. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai explains these words with a mashal. Mashal lemelech shezimen es avodov leseuda. It's a mashal of a king who invited guests for a seuda v'lo kavah lehem zman. He didn't tell them what time to come. Pikchin shebohen kishtu es atzmon v'yoshu al pesach beis hamelech. The wise ones that were invited to the seuda, they got themselves adorned and dressed up, And then they waited at the doorway of the king because they knew that at any time they could be called. Omru, they said to themselves, Klum chaser lebeis hamelech, is anything lacking in the palace? Whenever the king will determine his time, he'll call us to come. We better be ready. Tipshin shebahen holchu lemalachtan, the foolish ones that were invited, they went about their business, they went to work. Omru, they said, Klum yesh su'uda b'lo torach, is there a suda without effort that needs preparation? And therefore we'll have time to then adorn ourselves and to then get dressed properly before the banquet. Pitoim bikesh hamelech es avod. Suddenly the king, he then ordered the servants to come to the feast, to the banquet. So pikhin shebahen nichnesu lefanok mekushotin. The wise ones, they appeared before the king, all dressed up. Hatipshim nichnesu lefanok meluchlochim. Where the foolish ones, they came before him in the suud and the banquet, all dirtied up. Somach hamelech likras pichim. The king was rejoicing at the fact that he went and greeted those wise servants that he invited to his banquet. The koas likras tipshim. On the other hand, he was angry at those foolish ones that he greeted. Omar, he said, Halolu shekishtu es atzmon l'suuda. Those who got themselves adorned and prepared themselves for the banquet, yeshvu v'yoichlu v'yishtu. They will sit and they will eat and drink. Halolu shelo kishtu atzmon. Those foolish ones who did not prepare themselves, l'suuda yamdu v'yiru. Let them stand and watch. Chasen shel Rabbi Meir, mishum Rabbi Meir Omar. The son-in-law of Rabbi Meir said in the name of his father-in-law Rabbi Meir, Afhein nirin ki mishamshin. If you have them stand up, it looks like they're just going to be mishamshin. They're going to be people who are serving. And that won't be a busha to people who did not prepare themselves for the great banquet. Ela, what is the proper mashal? Elu ve'elu yoshvin. These and those will sit down. Both the wise servants as well as the foolish ones will sit down. Halalu eichlin v'halalu re'evin. Those that were wise and prepared, they will sit and eat. Whereas the other ones will sit and they will not eat, they'll be hungry. Halalu shoysim v'halalu tzmeim. Those that were wise will be able to drink, the other ones will go thirsty. Shenema brings a pasuk, Koyama Hashem hine avada yoichlu v'avada tiravu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, behold, my servants, they will eat, and you shall be hungry. Hine avoda yishtu v'atem tintzmeu. He says, my servants, they shall drink, and you shall be thirsty. Hine avada yaronu mituv leiv. My servants shall sing with a jubilant heart. V'atem titzaku mikav leiv. And you shall cry out with a heavy heart, with a pained heart. So here we have, first of all, the pasuk that we just quoted says a difference between avodai and atem. Avodai, my servants, my true servants who prepared themselves to become for the banquet, they're going to rejoice with me. Whereas you, who did not prepare yourselves, you will then go hungry and go thirsty. The Gemara now brings another explanation of the first part of that pasuk that we quoted before, that Shlomo HaMelech says in regards to you begodim levonecho. We say levonim, that all of your times, at all times, your clothes shall be white. And again, we explained that with a mashal, that a person is always prepared by doing tshuva, so that his neshama, which is his begodim over here, will always be white, will always be clean, and ready to then be called to the great banquet. Dovra acher, another explanation, b'chol eis you begodecha levonim, at all times, your clothes shall be white. Elu tzitzis. This is a reference to the tzitzis. The tzitzis is referring to then the white tzitzis that go on the four-cornered garment. That will always be on a person's garment, meaning even if he does not have techeles, like bismanenu, still, when a person has a four-cornered garment, he puts on tzitzis, and that's a reference to the tzitzis. The next part of the pasuk, v'shemen al roshcho al yechsar, and the oil on your head should not be deficient. That word shemen has a word lashon of shame, Toiv shei mishemen toiv. Better is a name, a good name, than just oil. Elu tefillin. It's a reference to the tefillin because Hashem's name is on the one who wears tefillin, especially the tefillin shel rosh, which is seen even by the goyim. He realizes when he sees the Jew wearing tefillin shel rosh that he has the Shem Hashem upon him. Hadron aloch shoyel. We begin Be'ezras Hashem, the 24th and final parak in Masechet Shabbat. Here, the Mishnah opens up with a person who is traveling on Erev Shabbos, and he arrives only to his destination after nightfall. So now he has his belongings, including his kis, his money pouch. What does he do? Says the Mishnah, Mishehichshich baderech, a person who's traveling on Erev Shabbos and it becomes darkened, that means that Shabbos now arrives. Noisen kisa lenachri, he shall give that kis, that money pouch, to a Gentile, to the Nachri, so that he doesn't carry the money pouch, but rather the Nachri does. We know that it's also to tell a Gentile to do malacha for you. After all, if a person tells a Gentile to do malacha, then it's as if the Gentile is your own shaliach, and that maisa is misyaches back to you as the mishaleach, the one who sent him to do that malacha. Others also explain that because a person who tells a nachri to do a malacha for him, he'll then mezalzel malacha. Ultimately, he could be led to doing that malacha himself. So here there's a special dispensation, the Gemara will explain, that he's able to give the kis to the nachri. V'im ein imoy nachri, if there's no nachri present, meinicha lachamor, he may place it on the donkey. Now, why is that only secondary? After all, we're talking about a donkey. Isn't it better, preferable to then give it to the donkey than to give it to the nachri? And the answer is that no. When it comes to a chamor, an animal, so there it could be actually an isur d'oraisa, and therefore it's preferable to give it to the nachri, which is only amira la'akum and isur d'rabban, and the Gemara will explain be'ezer Hashem. The Mishnah continues, Higia lachatzer hachitzon, when he arrives to the outer chatzer, meaning to say the most nearest place, after he leaves the Rishus Harabim, he gets to a chatzer that is mishumeres. Then noitil es hakelim hanitolim b'Shabbos, he must take his kelim that he can take from the donkey on Shabbos, because after all, there's no more heter to allow the donkey to continue caring for you. V'she'ena nitolim b'Shabbos, and those items that are on the back of the donkey that cannot be taken by you because they are muktzah. Mater hachavolim v'asakin noiflim me'elehen. Then undo the ropes and let the sacks fall on their own. Since it would be a problem of tiltul muktzah to then take those sacks, let them be untied and fall on their own. Ask the Gemara right away, my taimo shoru le rabbanan lemesav kisei lenochi. The Mishnah states over here that he should then, on the onset of Shabbos, before the Shabbos comes in, he should then give his money pouch to the Nachri. Ask the Gemara, what is the reason that the Rabbanan permitted such a thing? We know that's a problem of Amiru La'akum. You can't have a Gentile do malach on your behalf. Answers the Gemara, Kim luhu l'Rabbanan, de'ein adam maimid atzmo al mamoino. The Rabbanan understood that a person will not then give up his money so easily, and therefore if he is not permitted to give his money pouch to the nachri, he's liable to then carry it himself, dalad amos in the rishus harabim, and that would be an isur d'oraisa. So the chachamim were makel; they gave a special dispensation to give the money pouch to a nachri. Omar Rava said, Davka kisoy, aber mitzia. This is specifically talking about his money pouch, but not a mitzia, a lost object that he found. Ask the Gemara, Pshita, kisoy tnai. That's poshit. The Mishnah states kiso, his money pouch, and therefore we know it's only referring to his money pouch, this dispensation. But wouldn't we also including a mitzia? No, says the Gemara, Mao the same, you might have thought to say, this is equally true when it comes to an object that he found. V'haydek tani kiso. So why did it say kiso then in the Mishnah? Orcha de milsa kitani. It's talking about a typical situation, but it would also come to include a mitzia. Komashma lo, and that is davka, your own money pouch. Since it's your money, presumably that you worked for, you won't part with it so easily, and the Chacham were concerned that you'll come then and carry it yourself if you don't give it to the Gentile. Whereas it comes to a mitzia, a lost object that you just found, didn't take much effort, and therefore you're willing to part with it. You won't come to then walk Dalet Amos with that mitzia. However, this is only stated if it did not yet come to his hand, that you only identified the lost object. But once you picked it up and you made a kinyan, it became yours. Then aval osi liyode bekisei dami, then it has the same designation as the kis. And just like they were mekil when it comes to giving a kis to the nachri, they would be mekil also when it comes to the mitzia. Since now that mitzia is in your possession, that would also be hard to part with. And the Chacham were equally concerned. You may then carry that mitzia dalet amos v'shos harabim if you were not given the heter to give it to the nachri. The Gemara brings another lashon ike da amrei. There are those that say, boy, Rav, it was actually a question that Rav himself posed. Mitzia habo liyodo ima. What would be with a mitzia? We know when it comes to a kis, as the Mishnah states openly, that there's a special kula to give the kis to the nachri. But what about a mitzia, a lost object? What would be the din? Kiven the asali yade bekise dami. Do we say that once it comes to your hand, it's like kis? That means to say that a person will not part with that mitzia, just like he will not part with the money pouch. Odilma kiven the loy torach bo lav kisei dami. Or since when it comes to the mitzia, he did not hassle himself, he didn't matriach himself to then make that kinyan. In other words, he just picked up a lost object. So therefore the Chacham would not make it. He'll be able to part with that. Whereas it comes to the money pouch, the assumption over here is that he worked for that money, and that money he will not part with. And therefore we'll say that it's not included in this heter. Gemara answers, take you, it's a standing question, unanswered.